Hello there. Come in. Take the weight off. Welcome to Homemade Audiobooks, the coziest corner of YouTube, a nest where you can settle down, turn the lights low, shut your peepers, and listen in to my homemade narrations of some of my favourite ever tales. These will be slightly over-the-top readings, with silly voices, accents aplenty, and a whole myriad of sound effects, all intended to give you the most immersive experience possible. What's better than reading? Well, listening to someone read to you. If you're enjoying my creations, then head over to Patreon to support my efforts. It would mean ever so much. For now, though, let's head off to 1960s New York and the Gothic splendour of the Branford Building. It's time for Ira Levin's legendary horror yarn, Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby, written by Ira Levin, read by Homemade Audiobooks. Part 2, Chapter 7. She thought of unwrapping the book there in the cab, but it was a cab that had been fitted out by its driver with extra ashtrays and mirrors and hand-lettered pleas for cleanliness and consideration, and the string and the paper would have been too much of a nuisance. So she went home first and got out of her shoes, dress and girdle, and into slippers and a new gigantic peppermint striped smock. The doorbell rang, and she went to answer it, holding the still unopened package. It was Minnie, with the drink and the little white cake. "I heard you come in," she said. "It certainly wasn't very long." "It was nice," Rosemary said, taking the glass. "His son-in-law and another man talked a little about what he was like and why he'll be missed, and that was it." She drank some of the thin, pale green. "Yeah, it sounds like a sensible way of doing it," Minnie said. "Oh, you got mail already?" "No, someone gave it to me," Rosemary said, and drank again, deciding not to go into who and why and the whole story of Hutch's return to consciousness. "Here, I'll hold it," Minnie said, and took the package. "Oh, thanks," Rosemary said, so that Rosemary could take the white cake. Rosemary ate and drank. "A book?" Minnie asked, weighing the package. She was going to mail it, and then she realized she'd be seeing me." Minnie read the return address. "Oh, I know that house," she said. "The Gilmores used to live there before they moved over to where they are now." "Oh?" "I've been there lots of times. Grace. Oh, that's one of my favorite names. One of your girlfriends?" "Yes," Rosemary said. It was easier than explaining, and it made no difference, really. She finished the cake and the drink and took the package from Minnie and gave her the glass. "Thanks," she said, smiling. "Say, listen," Minnie said. "Roman's going down to the cleaner in a while. Do you have anything to go or pick up?" "No, nothing, thanks. Will we see you later?" "Sure. Take a nap, why don't you?" "I'm going to. Bye." She closed the door and went into the kitchen. With a paring knife, she cut the string of the package and undid its brown paper. The book within was All of Them Witches by J.R. Hanslitt. It was a black book, not new, its gold lettering all but worn away. On the flyleaf was Hutch's signature, with the inscription Torquay 1934 beneath it. At the bottom of the inside cover was a small blue sticker imprinted J. Waghorn and Son, booksellers. Rosemary took the book into the living room, rifling its pages as she went. There were occasional photographs of respectable-looking Victorians, and, in the text, several of Hutch's underlinings and marginal checkmarks that she recognised from books he had lent her in the Higgins-Eliza period of their friendship. One underlined phrase was the fungus they call devil's pepper. She sat in one of the window bays and looked at the table of contents. The name Adrian Marcato jumped to her eye. It was the title of the 4th chapter. Other chapters dealt with other people, all of them, it was to be presumed from the book's title, witches. Gilles de Rais, Jane Wenham, Alistair Crowley, Thomas Weir. The final chapters were witch practices and witchcraft and Satanism. Turning to the 4th chapter, Rosemary glanced over its 20-odd pages. Marcato was born in Glasgow in 1846. He was brought soon after to New York, underlined, and he died on the island of Corfu in 1922. There were accounts of the 1896 tumult when he claimed to have called forth Satan and was attacked by a mob outside the Bramford, not in the lobby, as Hutch had said, and of similar happenings in Stockholm in 1898 and Paris in 1899. He was a hypnotic-eyed, black-bearded man who, in a standing portrait, looked fleetingly familiar to Rosemary. Over leaf, there was a less formal photograph of him sitting at a Paris cafe table with his wife Hessia and his son Stephen, underlined. Was this why Hutch had wanted her to have the book, so that she could read in detail about Adrian Marcato? But why? Hadn't he issued his warnings long ago and acknowledged later on that they were unjustified? She flipped through the rest of the book, pausing near the end to read other underlinings. The stubborn fact remains, one read, that whether or not we believe, they most assuredly do. And a few pages later, the universally held belief in the power of fresh blood, and, surrounded by candles, which, needless to say, are also black. The black candles Minnie had brought over on the night of the power failure. Hutch had been struck by them, and had begun asking questions about Minnie and Roman. Was this the book's meaning? That they were witches? Minnie with her herbs and tannis charms, Roman with his piercing eyes. But there were no witches, were there? Not really. She remembered then the other part of Hutch's message, that the name of the book was an anagram. All of them witches. She tried to juggle the letters in her head, to transpose them into something meaningful, revealing. She couldn't. There were too many of them to keep track of. She needed a pencil and paper, or, better yet, the Scrabble set. She got it from the bedroom and, sitting in the bay again, put the unopened board on her knees and picked out from the box beside her the letters to spell all of them witches. The baby, which had been still all morning, began moving inside her. "You're going to be born a Scrabble player," she thought, smiling. It kicked. "Hey, easy," she said. With all of them witches laid out on the board, she jumped the letters and mixed them around, then looked to see what else could be made of them. She found "comes with the fool," and, after a few minutes of rearranging the flat wood tiles, "how is hell fact met," neither of which seemed to mean anything, nor was there revelation in "who shall meet it," "we that chose ill," and "if she shall come," all of which weren't real anagrams anyway, since they used less than the full complement of letters. It was foolishness. How could the title of a book have a hidden anagram message for her and her alone? Hutch had been delirious. Hadn't Grace Cardiff said so? Time-wasting. Elf, shot, lame, witch. Tell me which, fatso. But maybe it was the name of the author, not the book, that was the anagram. Maybe J.R. Hanslet was a pen name. It didn't sound like a real one when you stopped to think about it. She took new letters. The baby kicked. J.R. Hanslet was Jan Schrelt, or J.H. Snartle. Now that really made sense. Poor Hutch. She took up the board and tilted it, spilling the letters back into the box. The book, which lay open on the window seat beyond the box, had turned its pages to the picture of Adrian Marcato and his wife and son. Perhaps Hutch had pressed hard there, holding it open while he underlined Stephen. The baby lay quiet in her, not moving. She put the board on her knees again and took from the box the letters of Stephen Marcato. When the name lay spelled before her, she looked at it for a moment and then began transposing the letters. with no false moves and no wasted motion, she made them into Roman Castavet, and then again into Stephen Marcato, and then again into Roman Castavet. The baby stirred, ever so slightly. She read the chapter on Adrian Marcato and the one called Witch Practices, and then she went into the kitchen and ate some tuna salad and lettuce and tomatoes, thinking about what she had read. She was just beginning the chapter called Witchcraft and Satanism when the front door unlocked and was pushed against the chain. The doorbell rang as she went to see who it was. It was Guy. "What's with the chain?" he asked when she had let him in. She said nothing, closing the door and rechaining it. "What's the matter?" He had a bunch of daisies in a box from Bronzini. "I'll tell you inside," she said as he gave her the daisies and a kiss. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said. She went into the kitchen. "How was the memorial?" "Very nice. Very short." I got the shirt that was in the New Yorker," he said, going to the bedroom. "Hey," he called, "on a clear day and skyscraper are both closing." She put the daisies in a blue pitcher and brought them into the living room. Guy came in and showed her the shirt. She admired it. Then she said, "Do you know who Roman really is?" Guy looked at her, blinked, and frowned. "What do you mean, honey?" he said. "He's Roman." "He's Adrian Marcado's son," she said. "The man who said he conjured up Satan and was attacked downstairs by a mob. Roman is his son, Stephen. Roman Castavet is Stephen Marcato rearranged, an anagram." Guy said, "Who told you?" "Hutch," Rosemary said. She told Guy about all of them witches and Hutch's message. She showed him the book, and he put aside his shirt and took it and looked at it, looked at the title page and the table of contents, and then sprung the pages out slowly from under his thumb, looking at all of them. There he is when he was 13, Rosemary said. "See the eyes?" "It might just possibly be a coincidence," Guy said. "And another coincidence that he's living here, in the same house Stephen Marcato was brought up in." Rosemary shook her head. "The ages match too," she said. "Stephen Marcato was born in August 1886, which would make him 79 now, which is what Roman is. It's no coincidence." "No, I guess it's not," Guy said, springing out more pages. "I guess he's Stephen Marcato, all right. Poor old geezer. No wonder he switched his name around with a crazy father like that." Rosemary looked at Guy uncertainly and said, "You don't think he's the same as his father?" "What do you mean?" Guy said and smiled at her. "A witch? A devil worshipper?" She nodded. "Ro," he said, "are you kidding? Do you really—" He laughed and gave the book back to her. "Oh, Ro, honey," he said. "It's a religion," she said. "It's an early religion that got pushed into the corner." "All right," he said, "but today?" "His father was a martyr to it," she said. "That's how it must look to him. Do you know where Adrian Marcato died? In a stable on Corfu, wherever that is, because they wouldn't let him into the hotel, really. No room at the inn. So he died in the stable, and he was with him, Roman. Do you think he's given it up after that?" "Honey, it's 1966, Guy said. "This book was published in 1933, Rosemary said. "There were covens in Europe. It's what they're called, the groups, the congregations. Covens. In Europe, in North and South America, in Australia. Do you think they've all died out in just 33 years? They've got a coven here. Minnie and Roman, with Laura Louise and the Fountains and the Gilmores and the Weeses. Those parties with the flute and the chanting. Those are Sabbaths or Espats or whatever they are." "Honey," Guy said, "don't get excited. Let's—" "Read what they do, Guy," she said, holding the book open at him and jabbing a page with her forefinger. "They use blood in their rituals because blood has power. And the blood that has the most power is a baby's blood. A baby that hasn't been baptized. And they use more than the blood. They use the flesh, too." "For God's sake, Rosemary." "Why have they been so friendly to us?" she demanded. "Because they're friendly people. What do you think they are, maniacs?" Yes. Maniacs who think they have magic power. Who think they're real storybook witches. who perform all sorts of crazy rituals and practices because they're sick and crazy maniacs. Honey, those black candles Minnie brought us were from the Black Mass. That's how Hutch caught on. And their living room is clear in the middle so that they have room. Honey, Guy said, they're old people and they have a bunch of old friends. And Dr. Shand happens to play the recorder. You can get black candles right down in the hardware store, and red ones, and green ones, and blue ones. And their living room is clear because Minnie is a lousy decorator. Roman's father was a nut, okay, but that's no reason to think that Roman is too. They're not setting foot in this apartment ever again, Rosemary said. Either one of them, or Laura Louise, or any of the others, and they're not coming within 50 feet of the baby. The fact that Roman changed his name proves that he's not like his father, Guy said. If he were, he'd be proud of the name and he would have kept it. He did keep it, Rosemary said. He switched it around, but he didn't really change it for something else, and this way he can get into hotels. She went away from Guy to the window where the Scrabble set lay. I won't let them in again, she said, and as soon as the baby is old enough, I want to sublet and move. I don't want them near us. Hutch was right. We never should have moved in here. She looked out the window, holding the book clamped in both hands, trembling. Guy watched her for a moment. What about Dr. Saperstein? He said. Is he in the coven too? She turned and looked at him. After all, he said, there've been maniac doctors, haven't there? His big ambition is probably to make house calls on a broomstick. She turned to the window again, her face sober. No, I don't think he's one of them, he said. He's too intelligent. And besides, he's Jewish, Guy said and laughed. Well, I'm glad you've exempted somebody from your McCarthy-type smear campaign. Talk about witch hunting, wow. And guilt by association. I'm not saying they're really witches, Rosemary said. I know they haven't got real power, but there are people who do believe, even if we don't, just the way my family believes that God hears their prayers and that the wafer is the actual body of Jesus. Minnie and Roman believe their religion. Believe it and practice it. I know they do, and I'm not going to take any chances with the baby's safety. We're not going to sublet and move, Guy said. Yes, we are, Rosemary said, turning to him. He picked up his new shirt. We'll talk about it later, he said. He lied to you, she said. His father wasn't a producer. He didn't have anything to do with the theater at all. All right, so he's a bull thrower, Guy said. Who the hell isn't? He went into the bedroom. Rosemary sat down next to the Scrabble set. She closed it and, after a moment, opened the book and began again to read the final chapter, Witchcraft and Satanism. Guy came back in without the shirt. I don't think you ought to read any more of that, he said. Rosemary said, I just want to read this last chapter. Not today, honey, Guy said, coming to her. You've got yourself worked up enough as it is. It's not good for you or the baby. He put his hand out and waited for her to give him the book. I'm not worked up, she said. You're shaking, he said. You've been shaking for 5 minutes now. Come on, give it to me. You'll read it tomorrow. Guy. No, he said. I mean it. Come on, give it to me. She said, oh, and gave it to him. He went over to the bookshelves, stretched up, and put it as high as he could reach, across the tops of the 2 Kinsey reports. You'll read it tomorrow, he said. You've had too much stirring up today already, with the memorial and all.